The night was supposed to be simple, forgettable, and safe. The kind of evening that existed only to prove to oneself that moving on was possible. Yet sometimes, life chooses the most ordinary moments to reveal the deepest truths. When a folded note slid onto the table beside a half-finished glass of wine, it carried more weight than any heartbreak Nathaniel Cole had ever known. In that instant, under the warm amber lights of a downtown Chicago restaurant, his life quietly shifted in a way he never saw coming. Before the story unfolds any further, if you're someone who believes in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of doing the right thing even when it's hard, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that compassion can still change lives. Nathaniel had not wanted to come on this blind date. At 34, he had already been through a marriage that collapsed under the weight of misunderstandings and unspoken resentments, and the exhaustion of starting over felt heavier than loneliness itself. But his coworker insisted, assuring him that Rebecca was different, that she was charming, accomplished, and exactly what he needed to remember how to smile again. So he put on his navy blazer, combed his hair with care, and told himself that one dinner could not hurt. The restaurant was the kind of place that tried very hard to feel intimate, with low-hanging lights, polished wood tables, and soft music humming in the background. Nathaniel arrived early, sitting straight in his chair, rehearsing polite conversation in his mind. When Rebecca walked in, he recognized her immediately from the photo he had been shown. She was poised, attractive, and confident in the way someone is when they are used to being admired. She smiled easily, slid into her seat, and the evening began. At first, everything seemed normal. Rebecca spoke about her work in marketing, her travels, and her taste for fine dining, all with a practiced ease that suggested she knew how to present herself. Nathaniel listened, nodding, contributing when he could, though something about the conversation felt strangely one-sided. He noticed how often her eyes drifted across the room, how she subtly adjusted her posture when other diners passed by, how she seemed more aware of being seen than of truly being present. Still, Nathaniel pushed the feeling aside. He told himself he was being unfair, that after years of disappointment, he was simply cautious. He wanted this to work, or at least not to fail spectacularly. He wanted to believe that life was capable of offering something gentle again. That was when Hannah, the waitress, approached their table. She was young, perhaps in her mid-20s, with blonde hair pulled into a loose bun and an expression that balanced professionalism with quiet observation. She moved with purpose, refilling water glasses, asking about appetizers, doing all the things that made a restaurant run smoothly. But as she placed the wine glasses down, her eyes lingered just a second too long on Nathaniel's face. There was something there, a flicker of recognition or concern, though he couldn't place it. The evening continued, plates arriving and being cleared, the noise of the restaurant swelling and receding like a tide. Nathaniel noticed Rebecca's impatience when the food took longer than expected, the way she spoke to Hannah with thinly veiled annoyance, as though courtesy was optional. Each small moment chipped away at the image Nathaniel had been trying to build in his mind. And then, without ceremony, the moment arrived. As Hannah returned to the table with the check, she set it down gently. Beneath it, barely noticeable, was a small folded note. Her hand brushed the edge of the table, and her eyes met Nathaniel's for the briefest second. In that glance was something urgent, something almost apologetic. Then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the flow of the restaurant. Nathaniel's heart began to pound, though he didn't yet know why. He waited, unsure of what he was supposed to do, until Rebecca looked down at her phone, momentarily distracted. With a sense of quiet disbelief, Nathaniel unfolded the note. It read simply, "She's not who you think." No signature, no explanation, just those words written in hurried handwriting. Nathaniel stared at the paper, his mind racing. His first instinct was to dismiss it as a mistake, a prank, or some misguided attempt at drama. But something in Hannah's eyes had been too sincere, too heavy with meaning to ignore. He felt an unexpected chill crawl up his spine. As he slipped the note into his pocket, he became acutely aware of everything around him. Rebecca's laughter suddenly sounded sharper. Her smile felt rehearsed. Every small complaint she made about the restaurant or the service now rang louder in his ears. Nathaniel found himself watching her closely, as though seeing her for the first time. He thought about Hannah, about the courage it must have taken to leave that note. What could compel a stranger to intervene in someone else's evening? The question unsettled him more than the warning itself. After dinner, as they prepared to leave, Nathaniel excused himself, claiming he needed to use the restroom. Instead, he quietly approached the service area, where he saw Hannah stacking plates. His heart hammered as he tried to find the right words, unsure if he even had the right to ask. Hannah looked up and recognized him immediately. Her expression tightened with a mix of fear and resolve. She didn't speak, but she didn't walk away either. In that brief exchange of glances, Nathaniel understood that whatever she had written came from a place of conscience, not malice. He thanked her softly, not for the note itself, but for her honesty. Hannah nodded, her shoulders relaxing just a little, as though she had been carrying a weight and had finally set it down. Nathaniel returned to the table with a mind in turmoil. He paid the bill and walked Rebecca outside, the city air cool against his face. Under the streetlights, with traffic humming in the distance, the moment of truth hovered between them. Nathaniel realized he could no longer pretend everything was fine. He felt a responsibility to himself, to listen to the quiet warnings he had learned to ignore in the past. The evening ended awkwardly, with polite goodbyes and an unspoken understanding that there would be no second date. As Nathaniel watched Rebecca walk away, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement, he felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief that he had trusted his instincts, sadness that another possibility had dissolved before it could truly begin. But the story did not end there. Days later, Nathaniel found himself thinking about Hannah. Not in a romantic sense at first, but with curiosity and gratitude. He returned to the restaurant under the pretense of dinner, hoping to see her again. When she approached his table, surprise flickered across her face, quickly replaced by a shy smile. Over time, Nathaniel learned her story. Hannah was working her way through nursing school, balancing long shifts with late-night studying. She had grown up in a household where deception had caused deep wounds, and she had promised herself she would never stay silent when she sensed someone was being misled. On that night, she had overheard Rebecca speaking on the phone earlier, boasting about using dates to secure financial favors and connections. Hannah hadn't known Nathaniel, but she had known enough to feel that staying quiet would haunt her. Nathaniel listened, deeply moved by her honesty. He recognized in Hannah a strength that came not from confidence, but from integrity. Where Rebecca had been polished and self-assured, Hannah was grounded and real. Their conversations unfolded naturally, unhurried and sincere, built on shared values rather than appearances. As weeks turned into months, a quiet bond formed between them. Nathaniel found himself healing in ways he hadn't expected. He learned to trust again, not blindly, but thoughtfully. He learned that love did not announce itself with grand gestures, but revealed itself through small acts of courage and care. Yet the journey was not without struggle. Nathaniel wrestled with his past, with the fear that he might be projecting hope where there was none. Hannah, too, carried doubts, unsure if she was ready to open her heart while juggling her demanding life. There were moments of hesitation, moments when both considered retreating into safety. What carried them forward was patience. They took things slowly, allowing trust to grow at its own pace. Nathaniel supported Hannah through exams and long shifts, learning to admire her resilience. Hannah encouraged Nathaniel to confront his lingering pain, to forgive himself for mistakes he had made when he didn't know better. Together, they created something neither had planned for, but both had needed. Years later, Nathaniel would look back on that folded note as the quiet miracle that saved him from another heartbreak and led him toward a deeper, truer connection. He understood then that warnings don't always come loudly. Sometimes they arrive in whispers, carried by strangers brave enough to care. If this story is beginning to touch something in your heart, if it reminds you of a moment when someone's honesty changed your path, take a second to engage with this video. Your support helps stories like this reach others who might need them. Life, Nathaniel learned, was not about avoiding pain at all costs, but about choosing courage over comfort. Hannah's note had not just warned him about Rebecca. It had reminded him that goodness still existed, often in unexpected places, and that listening to it could alter the course of a life. On a quiet evening, years later, as Nathaniel and Hannah sat together in their modest home in Illinois, laughter echoing softly through the room. He felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Not for the perfection of their life, because it wasn't perfect, but for its authenticity, for the fact that it was built on truth, on choices made with intention, and on a moment when someone decided to speak up. Before this story ends, I have a special request. Take a moment to comment below and share what you think you would have done if you were in Nathaniel's place that night. Would you have ignored the note or listened to the warning? Because sometimes the smallest actions leave the deepest marks, and the courage of one person can quietly change another person's forever.